I've spent a lot of time in Japan. I've lived there. I've studied there. I've been back so many times. I can't even count how many times I've been there. And I've interacted with a lot of Japanese people in English, in Japanese, in Spanish. And generally speaking, almost all of my interactions with Japanese people in Japan, not even just Japanese people, but people in Japan have been great, super positive. Unfortunately, I had a really negative experience during my latest trip to Japan. Basically, I was harassed in a train station. I'm going to tell you all about that experience today. Hey, my name is Tony Vega. I produce content about Japan. I've been producing podcasts about Japan for years now. Japan Station, Ichimon Japan. You can check those out via my website, japankyo.com, wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Everything comes here. So links in the show notes, of course, but let's get to the story. So if you're a listener of my shows, or if you've been checking out the YouTube lately, then you may have seen or heard that I went to Japan in September of 2023 with the intent of walking from Kyoto to Tokyo. That's about 500 kilometers, about 300 miles. It's quite a journey. I did it. Took me 29 days. And I should mention here, because this is relevant to the story, but also relevant to the accomplishment, that I'm legally blind. Okay. So I basically have no usable real central vision. I just have peripheral vision. So sides and bottom. I can kind of see some dark contrast in the middle sometimes, but it's not really all that usable. So I'm visually impaired, low vision, legally blind, partially blind, whatever you want to call it. But, that's my situation. So walking from Kyoto to Tokyo was quite the challenge. But basically, I was able to do it, aside from a little, a couple little areas where I had to skip them because it was too dangerous to do that. But that's a whole other story. You can watch other videos and podcasts and all that, consume that to find out more about that, more content coming out about that. So anyway, I just want to say, so I use this cane to walk around, and I was walking around Japan, Kyoto to Tokyo, along the Tokaido Road, and this is relevant to the story, but sorry, I'm trying to put my cane back there, and it fell down. But anyway, here's how I did this, okay? Because this is relevant to the story. This happened during this recent trip to Japan. So I would book a hotel several nights in a central, convenient area. And then I would arrive at the hotel, and then the next morning I would go back. Usually this is how I would do it, right? I would go back to wherever I left off and then walk. And then at the end of the day, I would walk around 20 kilometers, right? And then I would walk to my destination. I would get on the train, go back to where my hotel was, and, spend the night there. Next morning, repeat, go back to where I left off by train, and then walk around 20 kilometers usually. And then at the end of the day, get on the train, go back to wherever my hotel was. So that's what I would do most days. And I got to Kanagawa Prefecture, which is right next to Tokyo. So I was very close to Tokyo. I probably could have gotten on the train and been to Tokyo in less than an hour, maybe. So I was in Hiratsuka. Hiratsuka is in Kanagawa. It's I would say middle-ish, in between Yokohama and Odawara, somewhere in between there. The kind of beach town-ish, that kind of area, the Shonan area, whatever. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, I had walked that day. I got on the train, and I was heading back to Hiratsuka, where my hotel was. Now, after I walk, what I would do is I would, get on my phone and I would check my social media, because I was uploading videos in real time, right? I was letting people know oh, I just walked from here to here. I completed my goal for the day, and people were very positive and supportive, and it was great. But just so you know, I'm legally blind. My eyesight is very poor. So when I use a phone, I basically use it like this. Okay. So basically my nose is right up on the phone. If you're listening to this, let me explain. My nose is basically right up on the phone. And sometimes my nose even touches the screen. That's how close it is. And I do a triple tap. I have it set up with accessibility features where I can do a triple tap, and I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but I do a triple tap and it zooms up really close. Right. And then I can use two fingers to move around the screen to the area that I want to see. Just FYI, typing like this is really annoying. Like I basically have to kind of know which keys are which keys because I can't really see the letters on the keys on the digital keyboard that pops up on your phone. So often I use speech to text when possible, but that is not particularly great, especially when I'm doing stuff like typing out Japanese names in English. Oh, that's annoying. But anyway, I get by, I do it. And so what I would do is I would walk my 20 kilometers or whatever, get on the train. And then usually while I was on the train waiting to, arrive in my, wherever my hotel was, I would say like, hey, I arrived. I'd post something. I'd post up a video and let people know like, hey, I'm alive. I'm okay. I did this. But I would do it like I just showed you, like with my nose up on the phone and do it like that. And I had my cane open. So, if I was seated in, for example, priority seating or whatever, it doesn't matter. If people saw, oh, this guy's kind of like, I don't know, when I don't have the cane and I do something, people might think, oh, this guy's a weirdo. But when they see the cane, it's like, oh, he can't see very well, right? Like they understand. Anyway, I was on the phone. I was looking at the phone during my trip back to Hiratsuka. I was probably posting something, just checking, what people were saying and stuff like that, right? Just because it's a train ride. What else are you going to do? Like, I can't even look out the window. I can't see what the hell it's like outside the window, right? I did that. I got to Hiratsuka. I get off the train. And right as I'm getting off the train, this guy comes up to me and he starts talking to me in really poor English. At first I couldn't really understand what he was trying to say. Now his pronunciation wasn't horrible, but like his composition of his sentences of what he was trying to say was really, really bad, really, really difficult to understand. But I got the gist that he was pointing out that he saw me using my phone. He saw me on social media and he saw that I have a cane. And basically I ended up figuring out that he was trying to tell me that like, basically, white canes are for blind people. You are not blind. You were on your phone looking at social media, right? But it took me a little while to figure this out because his English was so bad. And so I responded in Japanese because I could tell that he was just not good at English. And my Japanese is not perfect, but it's much better than this guy's English. And so I thought, smoother communication. Thus, I will explain in Japanese this, nuanced situation. Like I told him, this is a white cane. It does not necessarily mean that the user is completely blind. I am partially blind. And he wasn't having it. Like he didn't want to hear me say anything. He just kept going and trying to speak to me in English. And finally, he said, I'm pretty sure it was in English, but maybe it might have been in Japanese, but I'm pretty sure it was in English. He said, do you understand? Right. And so I tried to explain to him in Japanese. He didn't want to listen. He kept speaking to me in very difficult to understand English. I didn't know what else to say, so I said, "Wakarimasen, I don't understand." Following that, he got upset, like further upset, more upset, and basically he said, he switched to completely normal Japanese. So I guess he was Japanese. At first I was a little confused, but yeah, by the end of the interaction, I was like, oh, this is just some Japanese guy. Older gentleman, maybe not like 70s, but I would say my rough guess, 50s, 60s, but I can't say for sure. Anyway, he got upset after I said, "Wakarimasen, I don't understand." And he said, what I'm saying is that you are using a cane and you should not be using a cane because a cane is for blind people. And he basically, stormed off. Essentially, he said, I'm roughly, really just roughly paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words that he used, but basically he was saying, like, hey, you're not blind. Canes are for blind people. I saw you using your phone, right? And he storms off, right? He storms off, like his attitude, his demeanor, his tone of voice, his words, like just were very, very negative, annoying, made me feel extremely, well, to be perfectly honest, made me feel really, really angry. I felt like punching the guy, like just going after him and just, jumping and like, just sucker punching it. But I did not do that. I know that would not result in anything positive. His mind would not change. I would probably get in severe trouble. And nothing good would come from that. So I just stood there. I let him walk off. Now, for the next several hours, I was quite angry, and I filmed a video in Japanese where I recounted the situation to my Japanese followers, and they were all extremely positive. That video got a lot of views on my X account or Twitter account, whatever, and people were saying like, oh, thank you for teaching us about the white cane and all that, and now I know that, you know, it's not just for people who are completely blind, it's also for people who are partially sighted, blah blah blah, like yourself, or partially blind, whatever you want to call it. You know, they expressed that they learned something. So for me, this was an opportunity to educate, even though like I did get quite upset in that moment, but even now, like, I'm using this as an opportunity to teach, you know, the people that are watching this video, or the content that I've produced in the past about, you know, people with visual impairment. So like I was saying, it's not just for people who are completely blind. Most people with a visual impairment are not totally blind. They might have some light sensitivity. They may even see more than I can. And it's just a whole spectrum, right? And the cane is not just for like mobility, navigation. It's not just so that you can tell like, oh, there's stairs or whatever. It's also to let people around you know that like, hey, I can't see very well. So if a bike is coming at me full speed, the cane will let the cyclists know, as long as they're paying attention, right? They will let them know that, hey, this guy in front of you is probably not going to get out of the way, so you should move around him. And in that situation, that protects, of course, myself, it protects the cyclist, and it protects anybody else around that may get, you know, caught up in if there's an accident or something like that. So there's those two purposes for the cane, right? And for me, like, sometimes I can get by without the cane, no problem, especially if it's an area that I know, and like if it's my neighborhood, like I can get around with the cane, you know, fine. But in new, especially tricky, kind of dangerous situations like I was in during my walk from Kyoto to Tokyo, like super rural situations with like open gutters and totally new areas that I've never been to, and tunnels and this and that, like the cane totally, you know, super helpful. But again, it's also to let the cars and everybody else around me know that like, hey, this guy can't see very well, or can't see at all. Maybe, you know, you don't know. So just be careful. Maybe, you know, don't run at him full speed. Maybe walk around him instead, because he may not walk around you. So that's what the cane is for. And ultimately, like, here's the takeaway, right? Yes, this happened in Japan, and it happened in, like I said, in a Japanese train station. And yes, I to me, like, I feel like I was harassed because this person, you know, verbally kind of accused me of essentially not being blind enough to warrant using a cane, and he has no right to do that. He expressed zero interest in finding out more. If he had approached me and say like, oh, sorry, I saw you using the phone and I saw you have a cane, like, can you not see very well, or something like that, and I would have happily talked to him for half an hour, whatever. I don't know, depending on how much time I had that day, I would have happily talked about my situation, educated him, had a great interaction. We both left with positive impressions of each other, and he left with more knowledge and understanding of the situation. So I would have happily talked about them, but he didn't care. So that's fine. He went off. He's going to do his thing. That is what it is. This happened in Japan, but I'm not saying that this is a Japanese thing, right? Like, this stuff can happen in Japan, but I think it can happen other places as well. People that don't want to learn, people that just want to, you know, accuse you and kind of make themselves feel better because, I don't know, they feel like some kind of social police or something. That's going to happen anywhere. You know, almost anywhere. So I'm not saying this is a Japanese thing, but it happened in Japan. And I just wanted to share this experience and how I handled it, and use this as an opportunity to let you know about myself, of course, but also other people with visual impairments, what the white cane is, and also seeing eye dogs, same thing. It's not just only for people who can't see anything or almost anything, right? So just want to let you know about that. So overall, though, the amount of just wonderful people that I ran into, and the amount of people that, you know, helped me out during my trip to Japan, like literally, again, walking from Kyoto to Tokyo every single day, just walking, it was incredible. Like, the amount of just wonderful strangers that I came across on the street, just saying like, hey, do you need any help? Like, I see you're kind of going towards a place with no sidewalk. Like, yeah, actually, am I going the right way? And then they go, well, actually, you should go over one block and I'll walk you over, and this and that. And the people at the restaurants and the convenience stores, like, overall, it was just so positive, so wonderful. So this is just one person. This is just one incident. I'm not letting this taint my impression of you know, people in Japan and Japan as a whole when it comes to, you know, this specific you know, area, when it comes to, you know, human interactions and this kind of thing, especially with people like myself with a visual impairment or something like that. So that's my personal experience. If you had any, experience, let's keep it civil, but you can drop a comment down below, share your own experience or share your opinion. But again, I don't want to make this about like attacking Japan, because at the end of the day, overall, my experiences in Japan have been extremely positive, especially when it pertains to my eyesight and all that. So thank you so much for checking this out. Of course, if you're interested in more Japan content, check out the Japan Station and Ichimon Japan podcast. You can hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below, and I'll be back next time.